Welcome to this special episode of both Radio of Horror and a rebroadcast on the Spidey Dude Radio Network as an interview segment as part of the regular show. I'm on with Zach, the co-founder of the Spidey Dude Radio Network, as well as the current writer of the Hallows Evee Mini Series in the upcoming Amazing Spider-Man Annual, Erica. Thank you for joining me, Zach, to talk with Erica about Hallows Eve.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this one. This was a book that, whenever that was announced, I was like, I've got to check it out because the main character is one of my favorites as a longtime Clone Saga fan. So I was intrigued and interested, and when I read the first issue, I was really, really pleased as a fan. So it's really exciting to get to talk to the author of that book.
Erica,
well, thank you very much.
Were you familiar with the backstory of Janine?
Janine
right?
Godby?
Yeah, Janine, prior to this.
Yeah, I mean, I knew who she was, and I had read Clone Conspiracy, I think it was 94, 95. JMD Mateus and JRJR had done it. And I had read it, back then. And I had done a reread probably about in the early 2000s. But I mean, I knew who she was. I knew she was Ben's girlfriend. I knew that she had a crazy past. And when I was told that she was coming back, I thought it was, pretty interesting. I had not been reading the Beyond Saga, so I didn't know until Nick Lowe, the editor, reached out to me about writing her. And I thought, I was like, oh, that's an interesting kind of thing. And I found out, before pretty much anybody else, about the whole Hallows Eve thing and going to Limbo and Chasm and all that other stuff. So I thought it was really sort of an interesting power set, and also I thought it was an interesting way to give Janine some agency, because she's always kind of been, just the girlfriend of Ben, but now she has her own story. So.
Yeah, I mean, she always had this blank slate. I mean, other than her backstory, which, obviously with the Lost Years miniseries, and Redemption. I mean, nobody had really touched her but DeMatteis, and so, when I was like, oh, they're giving her a miniseries, I was like, man, because as a Ben Reilly fan, like some of the choices I've been like, oh, I don't know about this, but like whenever like they did that with Janine, I was like, oh, well, you gotta this canvas that's that could be filled in, and I really, really enjoy that. So you kind of mentioned it, so you were approached by Nick Lowe, and then you just kind of started working.
Yeah, for this particular project, Nick reached out to me just before New York Comic Con and said, we announced this thing at San Diego and we didn't have an author in mind for it. And at the time I was finishing up writing X-23. So he said, he's like, look, I'd really love to hear your take on Janine. So we had a phone call, and then we met up at New York Comic Con last year. And I was told, what's going to happen in, ASM 14, because it hadn't come out yet. And that's when she becomes Hallows Eve. And I was given sort of a little backstory and stuff. And I was like, all right, well, give me a little time to go and sort of ruminate. And I think the bane of any editor's existence is somebody asking for time, because everything is so fast paced, and especially because like ASM double ships and everything. So I just sort of made a list of questions. I knew where I wanted to take the story, and I knew that there was certain canon that I had to, there were certain bumpers that I had to make sure that I was within, and that's kind of the editor's job, is to make sure that, you keep continuity, and, nothing that you write is going to screw anything up that's going to come down the pike, in 18 months.
Right.
So, I wrote out my proposal, for lack of a better term, and had a conversation with Nick, had some questions back and forth. And it's probably because he was just too busy. He was just like, just go. I was like, all right, okay, fine. And I just sort of went with it. And I mean, she's a fun character to write because she's so snarky and she like has kind of this devil may care attitude. And I like that because she can come up. She's sort of like the anti-Peter because, you know, Peter has this kind of happy-go-lucky sometimes attitude with his one-liners, whereas her one-liners have a little more edge to them. So that's fun to write. And, you know, also she's a character who's not a bad person, but she just has very specific goals that she wants to achieve. And if you are in the way, she will go through you. And that's basically what happens to Simon Carter, who's this you know, security guard just doing his job. And she sees him as an impediment, and unfortunately, he has his life changed in an instant.
Yeah, and then the whole book really becomes about her trying to fix that one mistake to make sure that it doesn't get repeated because of, you know, what she believes about the supernatural and werewolves. It's kind of funny that, you know, we didn't see like Jack Russell show up to give her some help or Doctor Strange. Did you want to use any of those characters, or was it just like, let's just keep it to the Spider family and not involve too much else of the supernatural Marvel universe?
Well, I mean, the story's about Janine, so I didn't want it to be a male character coming in to save her, you know, because if anything, even from Clone Conspiracy and Lost Years and everything, Janine, for the most part, takes care of herself. So I didn't want to sort of, you know, neuter her by making her this damsel in distress. She has issues and she has things that she has to work through, but she works through them herself. And she has fumbles like everybody else, but she's the one who's working through it. So bringing in Doctor Strange or Jack Russell or even Clea, I don't think would have worked. First of all, because she doesn't have a relationship with them. She has no connection to Strange. So it would have been kind of a weird thing to sort of bring him in. But also, I mean, the book's about her. She's the title. So let's keep it with her.
Yeah, I guess the only supernatural character she has any connection to is Madeline Pryor.
Is Madeline.
Queen, yeah.
Yeah.
And Madeline.
And if you read Dark Web, then you know that she betrayed Madeline.
Yeah, and Madeline's keeping Limbo under lock and key and keeping Ben Reilly under guard in his prison.
Yeah, Chasm is in prison in the Limbo Embassy. Yeah.
I know you can't talk much about the upcoming Amazing Spider-Man annual. What was working on Hallows Eve? What led into that? Did they say, "Hey, you're doing do you want to write the annual as well? We're going to have her in it."
I literally just got an email from Nick saying "More Eve?" ? And I was like, "All right, I got a mortgage and 2 very old cats on lots of medication. I'll take it." So, you know, I mean, I've been there are certain things that I have gone after at Marvel, like actively sought out editors saying, I want to do this. And the Moon Knight, Black, White, and Blood, which is up for an Eisner, that's thank you. I'm one of 14 people who worked on it. So if we win, I get 1/14 of an Eisner.
Oh yeah, I was about to ask that. I was like, how does that work? Do you all get to share it like a couple weeks a year, and then
it's funny. I sent an email to Tom. This is literally last week. I sent an email to Tom Brevoort and everybody else who was involved in the book, Jim Zub, Anna Senti, David Lopez, Chris Sotomayor, all the editors, and I said, so if we win, do we is it like we get joint custody, like one person gets it for like a month and can take selfies with it and then mails it off to the next person, and I won't say who, but one of the people on the list emails back and says, I don't think that that's going to be a problem. And my response was, so you're just flat out saying we're going to lose to Tom King and Mitch Gerards. Like, don't rain on my parade, man. This is like the big thing for me. I'm going to have hope. If you guys, yes, we're probably going to lose to Tom King. I know this. I know this. Tom King, Mitch Gerads, I get it. I know we're probably going to lose to them. But, like, don't kill my hope, man.
What's their book?
Don't take away the shine. I mean, if you want it to be like the Stanley Cup where everybody's got a day with it, that's what it should be.
Well, I mean, although I don't know if this is entirely true, but somebody said that if there are multiple people on a book, that you could order more awards. Although I don't know who pays for that.
Oh.
So, because if you notice, when you look at the list of the Eisners, it says Moon Knight, Black, White, and Blood #3, and then it has Tom Brevoort's name because he was the main editor on it. So my initial thing was, so if we won, Tom would get the award. Although I don't even know if Tom's even going to be at San Diego. So it could be one of those Bueller moments. But yeah, so yeah, we're probably going to lose to Tom King, but I can, and Mitch Gerads, but I can at least, dream about it a bit. But anyway, okay, so doubling back, sorry, 3 subways and a bus to get to the point. So doubling back, I mean, there are certain things that I have wanted specifically that I have said, boom, I need to work on this. And sometimes I get rejected for it. And sometimes the editors are like, yeah, this is great. Let's do it. With Eve, I thought the 5 issues was the 5 issues and then that was it. And it was Nick who reached out to me about it. So I was like, yeah, sure. Why not? And in terms of that, I can neither confirm or deny that it is somehow kind of connected to the miniseries.
Okay.
So I would say this. If you read the miniseries, you will be wholly prepared for the annual. If you did not read the miniseries, you can still read the annual.
Well, there you go.
You might have a little more context if you had read the miniseries.
Okay. I was going to ask about the penciler, Michael Dowling. Do you guys work together, or is that completely coordinated through the editor?
Originally, it was completely coordinated through the editor, but I'm the type of person where I'll just go direct. Like, Michael's work is, I kept saying to him, I was like, I want to buy pages from you. And he's like, well, I moved all to digital. And I was like, why? Like, he drew something. I can't say what it was, but when it finally releases, I can post it. But he drew a panel that literally made me swoon. And I have it on my phone, and I've been, like, showing it to a couple of people, and I showed my husband. I'm like, would you look at this? And he's like, it's a good-looking panel. I'm like, it is. But, Mike Dowling, he's really great. He's got a great sense of humor. He has a great sense of movement and motion on the page. I think that's one thing that is difficult to convey sometimes for artists. Is yes, it is static, but it is sequential storytelling. Like, you need to show some type of motion, some type of continuation from one panel to the next. And Mike is really good at that. And also, a lot of, pretty much every design of Hallows Eve in the masks, with the exception of a few of them, because I think Ed McGuinness did the original design in her Hallows Eve costume, but then the masks themselves, the werewolf mask, I don't think she had the werewolf mask on. So Mike designed that and designed the witch mask and the ghost mask and a lot of the masks that we use throughout. So, he really went to town with it. And there's something that we're working on that I can't talk about yet, that Mike and I are working on. And when he got the script, he said, there's going to be a lot of fun things to draw on this. And that's always the best thing to hear from an artist, because you never want it to be a chore. You never want anybody to say, oh God, I got to draw X, Y, and Z. You want them to be like, oh, I'm looking forward to this.
You worked as an art director at an advertising agency, and then worked at Neil Adams, Continuity Studios. Have you drawn a lot as well because you're an artist too? I've
worked as a background artist. I would consider 10 years ago, I was much better because I was drawing every single day. I haven't picked up a pencil to draw something, and you have to draw every day. Like, that's how you continue. That's how you keep your skills up. Mm-hmm. It's basically like training like an Olympic athlete. They have to be in the gym every day. It's the same thing with drawing. So I haven't picked a pencil up in, going close to 10, not even 10 years, but a good 5 years. And I've lost a lot of my drawing skills, and I'm the first person to admit that. But when I was working at the studio, I would draw a lot of backgrounds. I still do a lot of digital manipulation of things. I will draw, like, if an artist asks for it, I will draw thumbs. I'll thumbnail out a scene for them. And I always say I use it as a suggestion. Now that Michael and I have been working together going on 6 issues now, possibly 7, that I think we've gotten a groove. We've gotten really into a groove, and I think he knows exactly what I'm insinuating, and I know that when I get something back from him, it's going to be perfect, if not near perfect. It's the same thing with Edgar Salazar, who worked with me on X-23 and Moon Knight What If. I got to meet Edgar last year at San Diego, and one of the biggest compliments I've ever gotten from an artist is saying, you write for the artist. And Edgar said, you have an art background, don't you? And I was like, well, I worked in a studio for a bunch of years. I've done some animation and stuff. And he's like, yeah, I can tell. I can tell by the way you write. You write for the artist. And I'm like, to me, that's a huge compliment. Because it is a collaboration, and I don't ever want one corner of it, whether it's the penciling, the inking, the coloring, whatever. I don't ever want there to be a roadblock because of something that I've done. I want to make it as streamlined and as smooth as possible. So I think because Michael and I have been working together for, the better part of a year now, I think we can pretty much be pretty seamless about stuff. Same thing with Edgar. I mean, I'd love to work with Edgar again as well.
From a technical standpoint, I always like to ask writers, do you write full scripts, or do you write the breakdowns? I mean, not everybody, there's not a lot of people doing Marvel style, but it's still interesting to hear if you do that. And then if you obviously develop this rapport, is there a little bit less in terms of the structure of scripting, or is it just, you do how you do it?
For my own sanity, for lack of a better term, what I do is I will give if it's a mini series, I will give a 1-page to 2-page summary to the editor for what's going to happen, all the major beats in the mini series. And once that gets blessed, then I will do that same 1 to 2-page summary for each issue. We have the major beats for all 5 issues or 6 issues. This is what of those major beats, this is what it's going to be in issue 1, issue 2, etc. Once the editor signs off on the pacing of that, because the editor may say, oh, let's do this nonlinear and make, instead of this beat, if you're doing it linear, then the last beat's going to come in issue, 4 or 5. Why don't we do this nonlinear? Let's start, now, and then the vast majority be the flashback leading up to, turning around and getting that set up. But then once I have that, then I'm like, okay, I have a 20-page issue, a 22-page issue, whatever. I start breaking that up into sequences, like page 1, and I put 1 or 2 sentences down. And that's going to, be a sequence that's going to be pages 1 to 3, and then pages 4 and 5, blah, 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 6 and 7, etc. And I do that for me. There is a project that I'm working on that I was asked to work Marvel style. I did that. So it was a 32-page first issue, and I did, page 1, here's a couple of sentences, maybe a line of dialogue or 2, and throughout. And the editor, signed off on it. And then when I had a conversation with the artist wasn't comfortable working Marvel style. And he's like, look, I'm still a little nervous about this. Could you write full script, at least for the first couple of issues? And then once we have that rapport, and once we start to get that seamless, back and forth, then I'll feel more comfortable doing Marvel style. So I was like, all right, I get it. So I'm taking that 32-page script, and which was essentially just Marvel style breakdowns. And now I am saying, okay, on this page, there's going to be a certain amount of panels, and each panel is going to have this drawn, and here's the dialogue that's going to happen there. The other thing is that every script that I write is usually, it's a suggestion. You know, if I write on a page 5 panels, 6 panels, whatever, I try not to go above 6 panels. If I write on a page, 5 panels, and the artist can communicate the same information in 4 panels, do it in 4. If you can communicate the same information you need an extra panel, take the extra panel. As long as the information is being communicated and the pacing is maintained, I don't care how many panels go on that page, as long as that information is communicated and the pacing is the same throughout, because it's the pacing that the editor has blessed and has, signed off on.
This is a character that I see coming to cosplay very soon, and probably at San Diego Comic-Con, which is coming up in, 2 weeks?
It's the 19th through the 23rd, I believe.
Yeah. Have you seen anyone cosplay as this character yet?
Not yet. I've only done small charity conventions. I haven't done any actual real conventions since the book came out, but we'll see at New York, because I won't be at San Diego, but I'll be at New York. Okay. So we'll see if we have any cosplayers at New York.
That'll be exciting. Is it exciting to see that as a writer or a creator, somebody that puts that time and that energy? What's it like for you when you see that happen?
I mean, I've never seen anybody cosplay as any character that I've done for creator-owned. I always love seeing, I love Hawkgirl. I love seeing Hawkgirl cosplayers, especially the Shayera Hall one. I love seeing Moon Knight cosplayers. I love seeing the Winter Soldier cosplayers. I think it's just, it's great because it's showing that something that you contributed to, whether you created it of whole cloth or you just added to it, it's showing that made an impact on somebody. And, Comics Broke Me happened a couple weeks ago and everything, and everybody's talking about how, they don't pay you enough in comics and X, Y, and Z. And it's true. I mean, the amount of people that are, millionaires from comics, I can count on one hand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you need that extra incentive. The reason why you have to love comics to be in comics, and I do this full time. I'm a full-time writer, so for me the hustle is real because it's all I got. But you have to love comics, and comics doesn't always love you back. There's that Kirby, quote, comics will break your, kid comics will break your heart. So seeing someone cosplay as a character that you've added to makes it worth it, because it shows that what you put down on that page made such an impact on someone that they spend hours and days at the sewing machine with the hot glue gun, and some of these, some people are so specific, they will go down to the earrings and they're stud earrings. They're not dangle earrings. Some people are so specific with it.
Yeah.
And it really, it brightens the hell out of your day, because it says you are making a difference. We live in a world right now where you go on social media and every 5 seconds people are like, the earth is dying, people are poor, people are starving, all this, and yes, all of that is 150,000% valid. Absolutely. But if you mire yourself in that consistently, then you're literally just going to be drowning in a sea of mud, and you're never going to be able to get your head out. So I do what I can in terms of, charities and volunteering, etc. But knowing that what I'm doing for my job is brightening up somebody else's day and inspiring them to do this, that then inspires me back and sort of says, you are making a difference. You're making a difference in somebody's life. And I think that with, I know we're here to talk about Hallows Eve, but I'm going to pivot to X23 for a second. Having a character like Jordan Gaston, like Haymaker, having a trans non-binary character, I think that is important to show people that, that other people in this world exist. And it's not just the Marvel universe, it's the real world. And Marvel has, I think more so than DC, has always sort of been a reflection of the real world, or has tried more or less to be a reflection of the real world.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. When they, like how they use New York so much, and they made a point saying Gotham City and Central City and Metropolis, they're all made up places. And
Keystone City and Star City, yeah.
Yeah, this goes back to Stan Lee, whether good or bad. He made a point several times saying that he wanted the heroes grounded in reality in the Marvel universe by making it seem like they could be your neighbor, they could live on the street with you, and things like that. And there's other writers that have copied that. I mean, God, there was an interview with J. Michael Straczynski and somebody else that worked on the Real Ghostbusters. When they did the Real Ghostbusters cartoon, they wanted to make sure that when the Ghostbusters were given directions in New York of where to go bust the ghosts, those were actual streets in New York that they would drive down. So they would announce the street name, and people would be like, oh, that's a real street in New York.
Well, it's funny, when we did, when David Lopez and I did the Moon Knight story in Black, White, and Blood, I made sure I plotted the route from, Coney Island to past Gina's Diner to where they would go. I used to live in Brooklyn. And so I made sure that I plotted the route, and I sent him an overhead map to be like, okay, these are your landmarks, and, you're going to take this street all the way down, and then you're going to take a left kind of thing. And because I wanted it to be, I mean, obviously it's not realistic, but I wanted it to be as close to realistic as possible.
Yeah, and I haven't read the X-23 book, but when I saw that you were writing it too, I was gonna wait. I was gonna wait till it gets collected, and I think the collection comes out in
October 4th.
October, yeah. So the previews right now are up to October. So, Zach, we got like 3 minutes left. So do you got one more quick question with a quick answer for Erica?
There's no quick answers.
No. Just thank you for writing this series, man. I really love the work you guys have done with the Hallows Eve. I'm really appreciative of it, and I just thank you.
And I also saw
thank you.
And I also saw your post about the writer's strike. So thank you for supporting writers. Obviously, being one yourself, that's not hard to do.
Well, I'm not in the guild. I'm not part of the writers guild.
You are a writer, though. So I mean, one writer supporting a bunch of other writers, and the writer's strike obviously just got a lot bigger recently because of what happened on June 30th. So. We'll see what happens. But hey, if there's no movies and TV to watch, people, there's plenty of comic books to go read.
There's absolutely plenty of comic books to read.
I absolutely love Swords of Sorrow. Is that what it was called? The Dynamite book?
The Dynamite crossover series. Yes, Swords of Sorrow.
All the female bad characters that Dynamite owns the properties to. Deja
at
Thorne.
The time, I don't know if they still have everybody, but at the time, yeah.
Yes, at the time, it was basically almost everyone except for Lady Death, it seemed, or Witchblade.
Yeah.
Not counting Wonder Woman because she's DC Comics, but yeah, there was Vampirella, and there was Chastity, and there was Bad Kitty, and there was
Masquerade, Kato.
Yeah, Kato's
Lady
daughter.
Zorro.
Yeah, that's right, Lady Zorro. That was
Black
fantastic.
Sparrow.
Yep, I did. I really enjoyed that miniseries. I loved Gail Simone taking charge of it too.
Yeah, Gail was great to work with.
Erica, why don't you give out your social media and your website and where your upcoming convention appearance will be real quick?
Okay, Erica Schultz Writes, WRITES.com. My socials are Erica Schultz 42 on everything. Instagram is Erica Schultz Writes. My next convention is this coming weekend, London Film and Comic Con in the London, UK. Then I will be at Dragon Con end of August, early September, and New York Comic Con in October.
Awesome. And you can find me and Zach over on the Spidey Dude Radio Network. Zach is the host of the regular show as well as co-host for the Make My Mayday, and I do the Sal Buscema Era podcast. And, of course, you can find the other episodes of Radio of Horror on the Radio Horror YouTube channel and my Radio Horror website for my other podcasts. Thank you again for joining me, Zach. Thank you, Erica, for joining us.
Thank you.